and good morning, sir. And
welcome. Good morning.
Again, we've seen you recently, and good to see you here again. You have 10 minutes. The rules remain the same, and the time is yours. So.
Gosh, thank you very much for listening or hearing my submission. Gosh, that previous speaker, he was fascinating, and it reinforced my opinion that there are options out there that in our farming community, there are people out there who are looking to solutions around the environmental issues that are not industrial based. So I'm really excited about that sort of stuff. Anyway, I was listening to the former Mayor of Christchurch, Gary Moore, on the radio some time ago when he asked if he had any regrets about his mayoralty. I don't recall his actual words, but it was along the lines of, "I'd wish I'd taken submitters to annual plans and the like more seriously. They were often proved to be right." His theory was that submitters were able to be critical of the ideas put forward by council staff because they were not entwined in the system. I wonder if this is the case here. My views on this matter are not news to you, and I will repeat some comments I made in my submission to the 10-year plan back in July 2012. They remain just as pertinent today. Without a finalised costing, how can you possibly make a rational, informed decision regarding the financial viability of the water storage scheme, including what the potential cost to users is going to be? Well, we know that bit now. I don't think you need to be reminded that without users, the proposed investment would be a white elephant. And the Hawke's Bay Regional Council is supposed to look after and manage our rivers, wetlands and aquifers. However, it is my belief that the Council is undermining its responsibility as a regulator under the Resource Management Act by actively promoting and investing ratepayer funds in major irrigation infrastructure. I say this because as the environmental regulator, you cannot also be the promoter of a scheme which could lead to freshwater degradation. Also, there is a potential conflict of interest when council staff are asked to consider and provide technical advice on resource consent applications by the scheme's users and the scheme's environmental impacts when the council is the scheme's major investor and promoter. And additionally, approval of this water storage scheme in this draft long-term plan would indicate to me and the voting public that you have not kept an open mind on this issue and have approved the spending of $80 million without all the information to hand. Something that sounds very similar to what has happened with the Forsyth Bar Stadium in Dunedin. I'm sure this is not a situation you wish to see repeated. See, I find it disappointing, even at this late stage, that the provision of information is late provision of information has continued unabated. Here we are being asked to offer an opinion during the consultation process which has begun prior, yes, that's prior to Deloitte's peer review of the scheme being available. Personally, I tracked down a copy, not without some difficulty I might add, and got as far as page 26 where I found this little snippet. We understand the absolute levels required under the Board of Inquiry's draft decisions are very stringent, noting that there is apparently some ambiguity throughout the draft decision. This requirement, as it is currently framed, is likely to affect land use options for farmers. The final decision is now anticipated no later than June 28th, which is in 12 days' time, at which point the economic impacts will need to be fully assessed. To my mind, this means that any financial analysis undertaken in this report and any of the financial analysis undertaken in the Butch report and many of the other reports compiled for the purposes of the promotion of the river RWSS are really not worth the paper they're printed on. This should come as no surprise given that the two institutional investors who were going to invest in the scheme have pulled out after they had undertaken their own analysis of the deal. What makes you think that you have a better insight in investment in water storage schemes than the likes of Trustpower? Like every good sales story, many benefits are given for the RWSS. Feed the world, save the Hawke's Bay from drought, save the tuki-tuki. I believe all these are pipe dreams which should be ignored. It is my belief that the only people who would benefit from the RWSS will be the handful of landowners who will take advantage of the opportunity, irrigation companies and offshore-owned bankers. Having viewed many of the submissions, the thing that surprises me about the supporters of the scheme is that none of them, that I've seen, have indicated they will be investing in the scheme themselves unless they're a landowner. It's all very well suggesting public money should be invested when they're not prepared to invest themselves. You see, my big beef with this scheme, as it is not so much around protecting the tuki-tuki, because that's covered under Plan Change 6. It's the fact that if it's such a great financial benefit, the financial benefit's going to sit with a very select few people, why aren't they the ones bringing the scheme forward? Why do we have to invest ratepayers' money in this scheme? The whole thing reminds me of the story of the Emperor's New Clothes, with you sitting in the Emperor's chair and Mr. Newman as the tailor. Food for thought, as it is your reputation is on the line when you have to make this decision. And I particularly don't want to be sitting in your chairs making this decision, because I know it'll be a really, really difficult one. And I respect whatever decision it is you finally make. But I'd just like to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go over here to start with.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Very good, thoughtful submission, Paul. Do you think the Regional Council must exercise the highest standards of fiduciary duty when considering its decision to make an investment of $80 million into the Ruataniwha water storage, and that the Council must have before it a complete business case in every detail, and that the councillors themselves must be able to assure themselves the conditions precedent are met? For example, the 40 million cubic metres of water is unconditional for farmers to take, and is unconditional for the scheme entity to supply.
Again, like all the other submitters, yeah, it's a very good question, Councillor Barker. Because it's not only council that should have all the information in front of them. I mean, we should have, as ratepayers, have had all the information in front of us before we were asked to make submissions at different periods or different times during this particular process, including the Toki Choices document. Because they dragged out, and they never arrived. So yeah, I think definitely you have to be really, really careful about making a decision under your statutory obligations. You need to have all the information in front of you, the full information, because I believe that if you had the full information in front of you, you would make the same decision that Trustpower made. And I also believe that there has to be an absolute guarantee that the 40 million cubic metres or whatever it is has been taken up. And you need to see and be 100% confident that those documents have been signed and are legally binding.
Thank you, Councillor Graham.
Thanks, Paul. Putting aside that we're discussing investment in the Ruataniwha Dam at the moment, do you think there is any examples where ratepayers, because you mentioned ratepayers, would make an investment in a social project and perhaps not get the return that they might get on a commercial investment? That there's any example of that you would sign off on?
Yeah, I think there's plenty of examples of that sort of thing. There's libraries, for one. They're a social project. Swimming pools, they're a social project, paid for by the ratepayers, invested in by the ratepayers. I don't believe this is wholly a social project. Certainly not to the tune of $80 million.
Thank you. Councillor Pipe.
Paul, you said
2 minutes to go.
You said in your oral submission that the only ones to benefit would be farmers, irrigators and bankers. Do you think they're the only ones that would benefit?
In terms of financial benefit, yes, absolutely.
No wider benefits?
I don't believe that the wider benefits will be resilient enough. I don't think they'll be sustainable enough. There may be short-term benefits, but I don't, as communities, long-term. I mean, we need to be thinking, at the end of the day, we've got ourselves into a position because of our reliance on export commodity agriculture, and we need to be thinking about how to move away from that. I mean, I'm not going to tell farmers how to suck eggs or anything like that, because that would be inappropriate, and I'm not an expert in that by any stretch of the imagination. But I do believe that by propagating the RWSS, all we're doing is compounding the problem. We're not solving this. We're not providing a solution. You know, it's like Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So that's my view.
Thank
you. Good question.
Councillor Bevan.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for your submission, Paul. A lot of your concern appears to be around the timing of the decision-making here, and I certainly agree with you that we're juggling a lot of balls up in the air currently around, whether we've got enough signed-up contracts and the investor mix and the likely returns and so forth. Would you feel somewhat more comforted if the final decision on this was delayed until we actually had the facts on those things, which is likely to be in September?
I would certainly be a lot more comfortable. I wouldn't say that I'd still agree with that, because our right to make submissions and have involvement in this process this is it, and we asked to be to offer our opinions without all the facts on the table.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. The 10 minutes are up, and thank you for a well-presented, very respectful submission. Thank you.
No worries, Vincent. Thank you very much.